Hey guys, and welcome to some kind of review for Beyond Eyes. Now, I've been watching this title for a while because it did seem really interesting. A game about playing a blind girl trying to explore the world. So, this game is a game by Sherida Halatoe, and it's developed in Unity by a company called Tiger and Squid, published by Team 17. Now, Beyond Eyes started as a graduation project that served as a prototype for the game by Sherida Halatoe, and it was created to show that it's possible to make meaningful, emotion-driven games without stripping away gameplay elements. So it's sort of pointing out that you don't need to remove the game part or the gameplay aspect of a game to make it emotion-based. So the premise of Beyond Eyes is that you help guide a little girl who lost her sight in a fireworks accident, and you go out in search of a fat cat named Nani that had stopped visiting her one spring. Alright, so here we are on the menu screen of Beyond Eyes, and I just want to show you the options screen here. And the options menu is actually not too bad considering the game. In terms of the resolution options, you can see here we've got a nice list of resolutions here. It doesn't go up to 2K or 4K, but I think that's generally okay in terms of this game because it's not really graphics aren't really the priority of this. Speaking of the graphics, there aren't really any graphics options. Personally, I played this game with the PlayStation 4 controller using Input Mapper, but of course you can use a mouse control here. And when it comes to the resolution, having this menu here is really nice when you're using a mouse because you can just sort of click on the one you want. I'm gonna not change that though. But you do have windowed mode yes or no, which is really nice. And we have separate audio sliders for music and sound effects. There is no dialogue or vocals audio slider, but that's because there really aren't any there's no dialogue or vocals within the game. I mean, there's sort of some conversations and some sort of people talking and making noises, but it's not really dialogue. And in terms of controls, we do actually have rebindable keys for the keyboard at least, and we can quite easily change this to anything we want, which is really nice. I mean, even this game has rebindable keys, and this is pretty much all you have: up, down, left, right, and interact. There's not much else that you need to control within the game, so that's fine. And in terms of chapters, once you get through the chapters, you can actually see how many chapters there are. There's a prologue, epilogue, and 6 chapters within the game, and it sort of separates the story into different sections of where you're exploring, but in general, it is sort of one continuous experience, and it's not really that long of a game. Now, the gameplay is very much like the Unfinished Swan. If you haven't seen the Unfinished Swan, it looks somewhat similar, but only in black and white, and the gameplay elements and premises are slightly different. But in general, you are trying to reveal the world. You're exploring and discovering the world around you that's sort of shown to you through touch, sound, and smell. And the whole world is illustrated in beautiful watercolors by the mind of the young girl. And all the footage you're seeing here is from the early parts of the game, and I really don't want to spoil anything or spoil any of the encounters or mechanics that you're going to come across within the game. It's quite slow-paced, as you can imagine. You don't really run around the world. You just sort of slowly walk and feel your way and try to find what's around you. You need to try and find the boundaries of where you can explore and where you need to go. But you always have somewhere that's slightly unexplored or somewhere to walk to. And you do often feel very lost and trapped in the world, because you'll be walking around and you will actually bump into walls and bushes that you didn't know were right in front of you. And one thing that can be very disorientating in the game, in a good way I would say, is that objects get moved around. And when you visit a location or when you explore a certain part of the world, when you come back later, it might not be exactly the same as how you last saw it. And this is something that makes a lot of sense, and it does actually feel very nice because objects get moved around and it opens and closes paths as you progress further into the story. Now, there is occasional backtracking, especially when you get a bit lost and you're not exactly sure where to go, but there's always a bit more of the world that has been unexplored, so you're never really stuck at one point. You're never saying, oh, there's nowhere left for me to go, what do I do? Because it's not really a puzzle-solving game. It's more of an exploratory game. And if you see a bit of the fog of war or something that's not really revealed fully, you can always walk that way and find new paths and new new bridges that open up. And oftentimes when it does ask you, or when the game sort of directs you to go back to where you used to be, most of the time the world will change and you'll actually have to go down a different path. You don't actually walk back the same way that you got there. Though in general, Beyond Eyes does have something special to it. There's a few mechanics and a few situations in the game that really evokes that sense of unease, that discomfort when you feel trapped. And the things changing isn't always like doors opening, closing, or boxes appearing or disappearing. Quite often, because the main character, Ray, is blind, when she hears something in the distance, she might assume that it's something else. But when you approach it, it could turn out to be something completely different. And this does... Sometimes it's just a basic change, like instead of like hearing a bird, but then it's actually a crow or something like that. But when you approach the object, it can actually change into something that's really unexpected, because a lot of objects do sound very similar. And this mechanic and this sort of situation that the game puts you in, it's not overtly scary, but it does, I got some chills at times when it just felt so uncomfortable, and I felt really bad for Ray because she's put in this situation that she really doesn't want to be in. And overall, there is a constant sense of loneliness, abandonment, and feeling lost because you're looking around at the world around you, and for the most part, you are just seeing a white background. And most of the time, you're walking in a certain direction, and you don't actually know where you're going. You're just trying to explore, trying to find your way through in search of your lost cat. And one sense that I got that I felt was quite special is that I got the feeling that the world around Ray doesn't actually look like what it does, because everything is imagined by Ray based on what she senses. So she's sort of imagining the world around her in this sort of pastel-y, colorful watercolors, and you don't actually know what color things are because Ray wouldn't be able to tell. So she just imagines the world around her in this colorful sense. But as she feels different things, the colors around her actually change. Things can get lighter or darker and so on. So you do actually get this sense that the world around her is not actually as she imagines it. And this is something that I really sensed, and it was a really nice feeling because it felt quite real, because that she wouldn't actually know how things exactly looked. But based on what she was feeling, she had a certain interpretation of the world around her. Now, the game itself is actually a really short game. I finished it in about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and even if you spend a lot of time walking around and taking your time, I don't think you're going to be spending more than 2.5 to maybe if you really take your time, 3 hours on this game. But honestly, most of you should be able to finish the game in an hour and a half. And this is, well, it's a relatively cheap game, but it is a little short, even for the price. And in terms of the mechanics and what you do in the game, it is kind of lacking in the variety of mechanics. I really do like the way it utilizes the existing mechanics, but you don't get a lot of variety. But I do have to say that it is a beautiful game that will make you feel something. And personally, I felt really connected to Ray's desires and difficulties when she's trying to find her way through the world. So the game is on Steam and Xbox One if you're looking for it, and it is a little pricey for how short it is, but it's a nice, tight experience. They had something that they wanted to express, and they did. It's a beautiful game in terms of mechanics and the aesthetic, and I have to say I don't regret playing it. So that wraps up some kind of review of Beyond Eyes. I hope you found the review useful, and remember, a review is only a perspective of a game that you can use for reference. Ultimately, you will end up deciding for yourself whether you like a game or not. And while we are on the subject of blindness, I do want to direct you guys to a fantastic channel called Tommy Edison XP. If you have not already checked out Tommy Edison XP, well, you definitely have to go there and see what it's all about. It's basically a guy called Tommy Edison who's been blind since birth, and he answers the most common questions about being blind, really. And it really is an insightful look into blindness and what they experience, what they like, what they dislike, what they fear, all of those things. So definitely go check out Tommy Edison XP. All right, that's all for now. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.